with Marcus Head.
Once again, we're here on another episode of the Good Head Podcast Show. I'm your host, Marcus Head. Have a very talented, I call him an icon because he's been around for a long time, celebrating his 30th year in stand-up comedy in the entertainment business. One of the most recognizable faces in the game you would notice. He's opened up for the Kings of Comedy. Very funny brother, been headlining in comedy clubs throughout the country. So without further ado, let me introduce y'all to the funny, hilarious Damon Williams. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
Doing well, man. It's been 25 years, bro. I've known you. 25 years, man. You know, you can't say you know somebody for 25 years and still have relevance with them. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing. Keeping my face out here and my voice being heard and, you know, people still coming to see you when you put yourself on a flyer. That's all you can ask for. I mean, of course, there's more to come, but to have that as a stable base and something I can rely on to be able to raise my family and, you know, take care of my bills through telling jokes all this time has been amazing.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about a few things. First and foremost, just tell me, how have you sustained after all these years with the coronavirus, with just so many different new comedians coming in? And you know how hard it is when you got these new comedians coming in and they coming up before you and they got that energy and they putting it down. You know, people know you, but tell what it's like for a comedian to have somebody go up that just killed and you still got to go up, even though you're a big name, because sometimes audience don't care about that.
I don't care who go before me. They're not going to outwork me. They're not going to have more energy than I have, and I'm going to bring it. I challenge that. I mean, I relish the challenge, to be honest. A lot of times people don't like extra funny comedians to go up before them or somebody to go up and kill because they don't want to work that hard. But if you're not working hard at what you love doing, then you're being complacent. You know, I've been on shows with some of the biggest names in the game, and I've seen how we had to jockey. Now, sometimes, like you say, chemistry and energy, they'll put you in different places on the show. But sometimes your seniority makes you the last one going up regardless. And, you know, you got to do what you got to do. There have been shows where I have had less seniority or less popularity or less followers than certain comedians nowadays as well, and then they put me up before them, and I'm gonna make your life miserable if you ain't ready to work.
So speaking of that whole controversy situation, what are your thoughts on Monique and DL about who's supposed to be the headliner, who's supposed to go up, and who's supposed to get everything else?
That's basically should have been done on paper before they got there. And it should be completely laid out and understood because they're peers. You know, they're both accomplished in their own right. He's a king of comedy. He's a radio mogul now. He's been in film. He's had a sitcom. She's had sitcoms. She's had radio shows. She's been in film. The only advantage I say she has in stature is that she has an Oscar. But nobody's coming to see them act. So when you come to a comedy show, you come to see comedy, and you do that based on comedy. I think DL has more seniority. I would certainly say the Kings of Comedy Tour outranked the Queens of Comedy Tour in sales and stature, but it should have been understood. And then it comes to time for me. Once I get there, if my money stays what I agreed to do, you can put me first or put me last. Now, it'd be different if there was no opening act and the room wasn't filled yet. You know what I mean? So you don't want to go out to a cold house. That's how I got on the Kings, because Steve didn't want to. He went from headliner to host, but he didn't want to be first. So that opened up the slot for someone like myself to come up and do it in 10 minutes, get people seated and get the room set up, both before the beginning of the show and after intermission, which is a very important part. Is re-engaging the audience. So I can't take a side in that. They both had stood on what they stood on. Funny versus funny, they both equal. And so that was just them. That was some personal situation as far as I'm concerned.
Now, speaking of Kings of the Comedy Tour, I know you opened up for them. And like I said, all of them have sitcoms and they've done their things. They deserve the name Kings. But I know you very well. And I know you go get up there. You consider yourself a king. And I, definitely consider yourself a king, or call you a prince of the comedy, going on. So what was it like performing in different cities on the Kings of Comedy Tour when you know that you got a seat at the table as well?
Looking back, man, it's 23 years ago, 23 going on 24 years. They had already been household sellouts as far as shows are concerned in small venues, like 2,500 seats each. Each one of those guys could go to any city, sell 2,500 seats, That's why they combined forces to do the arenas. At that time, I was just a Comic View comic, coming up in the ranks, and was blessed just to be associated with them. But once you grab the mic, it wasn't about me being the fifth king. It was about me fulfilling my role of setting the table, because I noticed that if any time I mentioned a subject, if one of them had a similar topic, if they had to reiterate, well, like Damon said earlier, then I would take that joke out of my set, because I'm not there to outshine or even be on par with them. I'm there to set the table. So I understood that. Now, if we were all to go out again now, you know, I want equal time. I'm still not at their stature financially yet, but I got the jokes, I got the chops, I got the experience. And, dollar for dollar, you're going to get your money's worth when you come see me. So I hope people realize that sometimes famous don't equate to funny. I'm not taking away from anybody that is famous. I'm just saying, don't wait each week when you see a comedy club to wait to somebody or somebody you've seen a dozen times, come through, because they try to have the gatekeepers have about 8 or 10 famous comedians, and they rotate the same people around in the same packages, in the same theater shows, in the same tours, and the same headliners. And every once in a while, you'll see somebody, I've never seen this guy before, and you'll go and be pleasantly surprised. I found that out just from doing my quick segment on Sherry Shepherd's show, how many people commented like, wow, he's funny. I wonder why I've never heard of him or not familiar with him before. So don't wait for the famous. Go for the funny.
All right, I got you. Well, I always ask all comedians this question because I remember Bruce was the first person to put the mic in my hand. So, can you remember your first experience on stage? Who was the person to put the mic in your hand, and what was it like?
Yeah, my first actual attempt, it's actually my second attempt that makes sense because it was a comedy club. The first attempt, it was a bar, and I went there to kind of, test the waters before I went to try to sign up at the real comedy club. So I went to the real comedy club the next night, and all jokes aside, and Adele Givens was the MC. She hosted the open mic. She had done Def Jam already, and it was a hot night on Wednesdays, and she was the first person to give it to me. And I went up and did my thing, and I kept going back there until eventually she moved on, and I became the host of that night following her. So I was a success. And it was cool because, I had always felt like I was kind of funny, and people at my job, I was working at City Hall in an office for about 5 years, and that was during Eddie Murphy's rise from, Raw and Delirious and 48 Hours. So people would call me Eddie because I was, kind of silly around the office, around the building. And so, but I never thought about, going to a structurally sound comedy club. I just thought, okay, people laughing at what I'm saying, and I was kind of serious when I was saying what they were laughing. Yeah, about a year later, year and a half later, I was the host of that room. Yep.
Dang, in a year? Wow, a year, man! And you just took off from there, huh?
Chicago was booming back then. All jokes aside, it was like an epicenter of black comedy. 6 months into doing stand-up, I ended up doing Comic Justice, which was filmed at All Jokes Aside in Chicago by Sinbad and his brother Mark Atkins and Andre Wiseman. And that was for Comedy Central. And so, like I said, I had just started getting on open mic, and then, a few months in, I'm on TV. So now everybody that did Def Jam, Adele had to go, Cheryl Underwood had to go, Kenny Howell and George Wilborn hit the road. George was more so home because of the house MC job at All Jokes. And then everybody just got to popping off. So I think Deion Cole just told a similar story about that Comic Justice, because we were all New Jacks, man, and they needed to fill some slots. And so they let us get down, and we all went on to do our thing. Tony Schofield, James Hanna, who else got in that? People like Diane Corder. Just so many people, man, that got opportunities early in our careers because of that. That was cool. And so now, fast forward right after that, I get Comic View. I started in November of 92. I got Comic View by 94. And once you hit Comic View back then, you was off to the races, at least with the colleges and the bootleg promoters, and everybody had a Def Jam or a Comic View night somewhere around the country. So, my career was in full swing. I wasn't able to fully manage my life and household off comedy after the first Comic View, but soon after I was.
Speaking of Comic View, I have to admit, there's like three Comic View scenes that I always remember at all time. When Ricky Smiley did the one when he was the gay dude and he was walking and he was, doing that little Daryl came out. Everybody remember that. Everybody remember B. Cole when he did the I'm in love with a crackhead. And then the one you did when you did about people being married for so long, and then you said
Yeah.
Stanley. You still got that clip?
Yeah, definitely. I post it every once in a while too. That Stanley clip, man, that joke. Comic View used to be a competition, so that joke helped me win to the second round. The first time I did Comic View in '94, I did not advance, and I felt like I should, and a lot of people did. But to the victor goes the spoils. So I came back. I skipped '95. I was a little salty, I believe, and then I went back in '96, and I won that first round, and that was against my girl Coco. And then I won the second round. I don't
What?
know who else was on that list, but that got me to the finals, which they gave 5 finalists in 1 hour special, and eventually the host that won. And now listen to this: it was me and B Cole and Cheryl Underwood, 3 Chicagoans, Hope Flood, and Montana Taylor. And they gave it to Montana Taylor, and she vanished from the industry. She did 1 year of Comic View, but it was a bad season because they had that. I don't know if everybody remembers that soap opera Blackberry Inn.
Yeah, I do. I do.
And they would cut in. It was like a hotel setup, and it was like some type of. So, but in the first season, it was all right. The second season was so terrible that people didn't watch the season. So what they had to do was take clips from all of the previous season and our specials and run best ofs almost every night. So that got me and B Cole and Hope and Cheryl all this, a lot of additional airtime. So that's why I took off into college because I was on Comic View. If Comic View was on 6 nights a week, you might have saw me 3 or 4.
I got you. That was my kind of signature when I got my big break working with Ron White, and he took me on the road with him. And man, I just like shot up the roof after that, because everybody was doing them hole in the walls and Lil Rail, Uncle Rail, get you a hat and some chicken wings with no sauce. That's actually where you and I first met. You and I first met. I know you remember, but the first time I met you was Calumet City when Little Rail used to have that hole in the wall spot like at 10 o'clock on Monday. You remember that spot?
Yeah, what was that? Can't even see.
3Gs.
Yeah, that was Uncle Rail's spot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's the first time I met you. You had just finished doing not a couple years ago with BT and everything else after that. So, your career was just really picking up and everything else. And you was cool, bro. I ain't even gonna lie. You was cool. I was mad at you because you bumped me when when you came in there, because you came in and did some time. You did like 15, 20 minutes when I was supposed to go on, but it was all good though.
Hey, we all been bumped by the best, man. But the
We
worst
all been
part,
bumped, man.
at least you were at home. The worst part is when you go to LA and you set up something in advance and you fly out there to do a couple of showcases, and then Chris Rock walk in with his notebook and they just tell the whole roster, ain't nobody else going up, Chris is here. Or Chappelle show up and do 3 hours, or Cat Williams. So that's part of the game. And I just had to explain this to a young lady who wasn't even on the lineup, but I told her if she was there, while she was there, I'd always like to give new people a shot. And she was snapping and stumping around the club but 3 vets showed up, and it
Right.
is what it is. That's this game.
All right, I got you. One thing I really appreciate about you is you're very smart and you're very business mind sounded. And a lot of comedians get on stage, tell a few jokes, make some money, but you took it to the next level. You actually created your own comedy show on Urban Flicks called Laugh Tonight with Damon. Can you tell us how you got that and where's that going right now?
It's still available. The Urban Flicks app, which is a black-owned streaming app, they got caught up in a storm of apps. Like we dropped right with HBO Max and Hulu and Paramount, and everybody is apping people to death. So now people are not really looking to subscribe, and so we kind of got lost in the sauce. But the show is there. It's 8 episodes. Some great comedians. It's a multicultural cast of comics, and it's not just stand up. We do a sit down interview and get a backstory of each comic's history and how they got in the game or where they were in life at the particular time of comedy. It's real casual. I got it because the owner of that network was actually looking to do a comedy show. He had been after me I know his family. He had been trying to get in touch with me because he was trying to get to Cat Williams. He had this movie he had written for Cat. He had a TV show he wanted to do with Cat. So he's trying to get to Cat Williams. Couldn't get to Cat Williams. Then years passed, and he ended up acquiring, the rights to do this network. And he was going to do a show with, I believe Tammy Romaine was slated to be the host of a comedy show, but he wanted to do it based on her Bonnet Chronicles character. And she was like, she didn't want to do the Bonnet. It's what I believe to have happened, and it was just her timing didn't work out. So he came to me. I was going to be a consultant on that show to help them find stand-ups. Well, when they didn't have the deal set with her, I said I got an idea for a show, and this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to do a sit-down interview with the stand-up and have the backstory and let the comics do it. And we were at Martha's Vineyard for a comedy festival, and I guess it was in summer of 2019. And I get a call. He's like, "We going with you. We're going to do your show." And I was like, "What?" And like, "Yeah." So it was originally supposed to be 12 episodes. It got cut down to 8 because once you get to doing these shows, man, and doing it on the scale that they tried to do it on, in the magnitude in Burbank and the theater, my idea was to bring it to a comedy club like Riddles, put up a backdrop and have the interview right there and do it in a comedy club setting because in Chicago you don't have to round up audiences. You ain't got to pay extras to sit in the stands and all of that because they just want to see the show and want to be a part of TV. Out in LA, the audiences are more spoiled. So it came out, man. We got it done, but it launched and we finished in February of 2020. So I guess it was 2019. So we finished February 2020, and COVID hit in March. So they had this national billboard campaign that was supposed to take place, but they scrapped it because they said ain't enough people outside. So they did a few commercials on BET. There are some other people. Ray J has a series on there. Michael Jai White is on a series on there. So it's a lot of original content, a lot of black stuff. But they wanted my show not to be all black because they said they was going to be with the urban, with the new twist. And now all this stuff is black. And I told them, not that we needed all black community, but I could have got some better or more, less diverse, more relatable to our audience, people on there. So, but it's a great show. So if anybody gets a chance, go to Urban Flix TV. It's only $4.99 a month, I think. And if you want to watch it, subscribe for a month, binge through that thing, and then unsubscribe. $5, you can watch the whole 8 episodes plus everything else on the app.
I got you, man. And actually, I peeped through it. You had some people, like, some known people. And then also what I liked about it, you was giving a lot of unknown people a chance. I saw Irene Varania and Brandon Boogie Montel, so I really liked the two of them. And like I said, it was nice.
Brandon Boogie B, he got real popular on his Instagram. He has this thing, come here, let me stress you out. And right after that, because everybody went in, we all went in, so everybody got creative. The Oxo, the Asian lady on there, she started the drop challenge, and it went viral. And now she's been on, I think she was just on like Jimmy Kimmel and other shows like that. So yeah, I have a knack for kind of finding like, diamonds in the rough and putting them out there right before they blow up. And this goes back to my New Year's Eve shows, man. I've had everybody before they got famous. Leslie Jones, who went to Saturday Night Live.
Now, hold up. Now you getting ahead. You're getting ahead of the questions. Before we get him to go there, I want to touch on that. So one thing that I have to say, myself included, is you've always gave stage time to up and coming comedians, and not only have you done that, but there's a lot of very successful comedians. First time they started with you putting the mic in their hand. Can you touch on a few of those people?
Yeah, my man, who rest in peace, Marcus Combs, who was on his way to do some bigger things, man. You've seen him on P. Diddy Bad Boy. He had a great set on P. Diddy. He was on Def Jam, killed it with the manicure, pedicure, who we lost. But D. Ray Davis, I gave him the mic for the first time. Just found out listening to Godfrey on the 85 South podcast that I handed Corey Holcomb the mic the first time on Wednesday nights, at all jokes aside. But then going on, further with the bigger platform, actually, so I'm D. Ray's big homie. He, in turn, did people like Lil Rel, who was one of his proteges, and several other people that come under his wing. And now he's doing the same thing and continuing that platform in L.A. on Monday nights at the Improv. And then my New Year's Eve show, we got a lot of people before they popped off, like, J.B. Smoove, Leslie Jones, Cat Williams. Who else? Because I remember I picked Cat Williams up, and I had a 75 Coupe de Ville, right? And I knew he pimp stuff. So me and my son picked up Cat Williams from the airport, took him to the Hilton downtown, rode around. I'll never forget because he got in the car and he's like, nothing like the feel of a Cadillac seat on a man's back, And me and my son's a shorty too, because he's only 30 now, but this was a while back, of course. 2 years later, Cat Williams come back to Chicago at the Erie Crown Theater, sells out 2 shows, 9,000 tickets. He's my competition. He shot his special there, but that was we caught him right before that. You know what I'm saying? So the list. There are more
Okay.
people that I could. I hope I mentioned Tiffany Haddish. Um, who else did our show? Back, may she rest in peace. Roz G, who left us. But so many people, man. Bruce was on the first one. That now
Okay.
their household names and popped off, and that was like a 17-year run at Star Plaza
Right.
Theater.
Wow, man. So we talking here to the hilarious, funny actor, comedian, and restaurant owner, Damon Williams. So let's talk about before the comedy even started, before you was funny, you used to own a Subway, bro. The floor is yours. How did that happen?
Well, if I tell the real story, I guess the statute of limitations is up. But I put it this way: I had some money, right? And I also had a job. I worked at City Hall for 5 years, but I had some extracurricular funds that I needed to legitimize. So I decided I was going to quit my job and quit the streets and go legit. So I went into franchises. So I started looking at it. Initially, I was going to do a Harold's Chicken, and Harold's wouldn't accept any more franchises. This was in 1989. Actually, I went for the Heroes 1988. They wouldn't accept me. Then there's a brother, Selena Johnson, the singer from Chicago. Her father was Seal Johnson, a blues singer who made the song Fine Brown Frame. I'll give you all the history. He had a franchise called Solomon's Fish, and it was a deep fried fish franchise. He had about 2 or 3 locations. He was looking to expand. So he and I came to terms. I was going to do a Solomon's, and we were going to do it in Hyde Park. And I knew I was going to be rich. That was it. I was going to be in Hyde Park selling fried fish. I'm off to the races. Well, we got to the building. We found a location. When it was time to sign the lease, they asked us, what type of business we were doing. And we told them, they said, oh, no, our insurance don't cover deep fryers. We don't want the grease in the building. We're not doing it. And I had just took a leave of absence from my job. So I had to go back to work for another, like, fall and winter. And then that next spring, while I was, that winter, I was on a flight and I saw a copy of Black Enterprise magazine. They used to put magazines in the back of seats. And I read through it and it said top 40 franchises for blacks. And the one with the lowest startup cost and the lowest build out cost, so lowest franchise fee and build out cost was Subway. Now Subway had not been heard of in Chicago. It's 1990. Anybody heard of Subway in the Midwest period because they were from Connecticut, but they were trying to expand. So I went out. Franchise fee was only $7,500. They found me a location downtown on 185 North Wabash. It was a food court. So I didn't have to pay the complete build out cost for a whole restaurant. I shared space with other restaurants and I was in business, but it didn't work out. I started losing money the second year. And as we were approaching the third year, I just decided to sell and get out where I could at least break even. But the cool part was about it. I paid myself a salary for 2 years. That was my own legitimate, salary. And I had my brothers and my cousins working and ex cons, people who were released from work release and such. I gave them jobs so they could come home early. And a couple of my cats did that. A couple of guys had been going through, substance abuse issues, but they cleaned their lives up because they had a purpose with the job. So it served its purpose. I met my son's mother across the street. That's how my son was born. So, Subway served its purpose. But the main thing Subway did for me was gave me access to the athletic centers, a gym right downtown Chicago where all the big ballers hang out. And I'm talking about sports ballers. Like when the opposite teams come in to play the Bulls, some of them will work out there. Jordan will work out there sometimes. The summer league games, guys will work out. And so I'm making a long story long. The membership manager used to always come get sandwiches. He said if I give him sandwiches for his staff, he'll give us a couple of passes to come and play ball and hang and work out. He ended up giving me a 6-month membership, which made me eligible to join the basketball league up there. And I heard some guys talking, and they were talking about this big lip chick. At all jokes aside, that from HBO, blah blah blah, doing stand up. She open mic, and that's how I found stand up, and that's how I found all jokes.
Wow, wow, that's incredible. That's a nugget that a lot of people may not know, but that's a great story and a real good story, man. So Subway to the big lip girl on stage to 30 years later, you a true headliner selling out everywhere. Now you also have a comedy tour you're on right now, and it's called Still Funny Comedy Tour. Tell us about that and how that transpired, and pretty much how long is it?
Well, what it is, I'm perpetually on tour, so every year I try to name my dates or something and give it a theme. And so this year, since we knew we were going to do Sherry Shepherd's show, I wanted to have a theme that made sense and something that people can, once we told them how to reach me, to find where I'm going to be, to give it something for them to look for. So Still Funny is the point of, a lot of us been doing this thing, man, and a lot of people have been in and out this game. We've lost a lot of comedians we've lost, man, like literally been losing them every week. Um, and I'm not. I was gonna call it still at it, but being still at it doesn't imply that I'm still good at it. So we called it We're Still Funny Tour, and I actually feel like I'm not haven't even reached the peak of my abilities when it comes to stand up, but I know right now I'm in a good zone of funny that I don't even have to write jokes down anymore. So I kind of Jay-Z it. So I hear a topic or you give me a subject matter, I keep that muscle working every Tuesday and Thursday. Not only with Sybil Wilkes on her platform, it's Sybil, which is on Facebook and YouTube Live, but also on radio Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do Sam Silk Show. He's out of Cleveland, WZAK.com. So you can find WZAKCleveland.com, something like that. We'll put it up. But it's every Tuesday and Thursday, 2:15 Eastern. So you can hear it nationwide since it's online. But me and him, we chop it up on topics. So they send me the topics at 10 in the morning, 10:30 in the morning. I'm talking about it, so I don't have time to even play with it. So I got to keep that muscle tight. But funny is what it is, man. And I feel like some cats get in this game and just get enough, recognition and money that they can keep touring, and they can do the same jokes year after year. The people show up, and that's fine. But I love the craft, man, and it would drive me crazy if I just was a robot and had a set and I just stuck to it.
The one thing that a lot of people really identify and know you besides your comedy is when you got on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. You started out as just a few segments, and eventually you became just an everyday radio personality. So can you tell me your relationship with Tom and how did all that transpire?
Tom was a legendary figure, as you know, from our youth all the way up until he was flying back and forth from Dallas to Chicago every day, 5 days a week, doing two different shifts, which was groundbreaking and really was like the blueprint for syndication. And then once he syndicated, he was definitely on stations here in Chicago. And he would do those sky shows, and it would also bring, celebrities to town. So I would go, I would just be out there like all the fans. And, of course, he would come back to the station, and I was always hanging around the radio stations in Chicago. So he eventually noticed, you know what I mean? So one time I just would be at those sky shows, man. And he was like, yeah, I know you're funny, man. So one day I got put in a play by Mickey Stevenson. Now, Mickey Stevenson is Smokey Robinson's writing partner at Motown. Matter of fact, that song Mickey, Stuff Smokey got a song about Mickey's monkey, something like that. Anyway, that's Mickey Stevenson. And I had no idea who he was, but he reached out to Carolyn Albritton, who was Bernie Mac's manager, and had took me under her wing as well, to say he had a play that he had written specifically for a comedian, and he had seen me on Comic View doing the Stanley joke, and he wanted her to find me, and she, basically plugged me with that. Well, the play went to Atlanta, and that morning while we were in Atlanta, the Sky Show was in Atlanta. So they brought the cast in because it was Howard Hewitt and Thea Vidal were the main two stars. And, of course, they were big enough to get on the Sky Show and do Tom's show. But the night before, Yolanda Starks, who was executive producer of his show at the time, and she's also producer of Sybil's show at this time, she saw me in the play. And she said, I didn't know you, young man, but you're funny, you're going to make it, blah, 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 blah. She gave me all my kudos. Well, fast forward, another young lady from Chicago went on to take over Yolanda's job, and she pulled me in for a Sky Show. She was able to get me in the Sky Show. And then after I did the Sky Show, I got a chance to call in, and do an interview. And I was funny in my interview. So both of those things led me to, being Tom's in his wheelhouse. And I'll never forget when I did that Sky Show, I had to ride from the hotel over with Tom. And like I said, Tom had been seeing me hanging around these Sky shows. He looked at me, man. He said, "You're finally working, huh? Like you made it." So that was cool, man. So once I got on the stat show, my next thing was, and I thought the end all be all would be to get on one of those cruises, you know. So once I got on the cruise, they booked me for the cruise, and I killed it. So they brought me back to the cruise, and then they started doing things where J. Anthony Brown and Tom were having a little friction, and Jay was starting to call in sick a lot. So I got a chance to call in and sit in for Jay. But before that, they gave me this thing called Seriously Ignorant News. That's what got me in. It was 5 minutes on a Tuesday, but every Tuesday, and I did it consistent. I did it for free. And I did it. I lived at the time on the south side of Chicago, actually it's Chicago Ridge, which is a suburb for people that don't know. But I had to get up and go to Kennedy King campus, which is on 63rd and Halsted, in the middle of the dark of the night, to be on the radio by 5 o'clock. So I risked my life for free for 2 years volunteering to do that, because there wouldn't be nobody out there but me and the crooks, So I did that 5-minute joint. So after a year later, after doing that 2 years, they gave me equipment where I could do it from home. And so that equipment led to me being accessible whenever J. Anthony Brown called in. They could call me because I could jump right on the headphones and it sound like I'm in the studio. So they did that a couple of times. And then Jay eventually left, and Tom gave what he called the funny chair to 5 different comedians. And I just knew I had one of them chairs, right? So I'm listening, and this year the funny chair, and he gave it to 5 different people, and I was not either of those 5. So I just kept doing my little 5 minutes, seriously the news. But I kept filling in for Jay. And that last year, he started calling in more and more. And so our chemistry developed. So whenever anybody was out or one of the funny chair people were out, they would call me in. So they called me the comedian behind the glass. But his last year, I became one of the 5. They gave me Fridays. And Friday is the turn up, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it helped me because every Friday I'm on my way somewhere. I'm plugging my show. Yeah, I'm on my way to Dallas, or on my way to, Toledo Funny Bone, or Cincinnati, So that helped all my career remain relevant to people who hadn't seen me since the last TV I had done probably was Martin Lawrence Presents in 2013. And I got on Tom right in like 2013, 14, something like that, and rode it all the way out till his very last day, his very last show, his very last broadcast. I was the last man standing.
Man, I mean, who doesn't know Tom Joyner, and who did not listen to the Tom Joyner morning show, especially when we lived in Chicago? Well, you still in Chicago, but yeah. I mean, that was like gospel. The fly jock, and then he'd go to Texas, and then he'd go and everything else. And man, just like I said, congratulations to that, man. You stuck with it, and you just showed what persistency and keep building good relationships is all about. And speaking of good relationships, like I said, we've known each other for over 25 years. And finally, after all these years, now that I'm, into the directing and producing, I got to bring you on a project that is coming out actually next month called Can't Get Right.
Oh, snap! I'm late for work! Now, when you go to rolling that weed up like back in the day, your hands go to cramping, Grandma.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Praise the Lord. Now, who the hell is this?
What up, big boy? You don't look too good. Come eat with us. We actually clean our meat.
Call on them. I say even when you're going to court. But if you're going to child support court, don't just call on God. Call on a good lawyer, too. Hey, man, you better call a good lawyer. Hey, man, hallelujah.
Man, where you been? It's 11:15. You should have been open. Smoke coming out that roof. I'm hungry.
Man, if you don't shut your Popeye eating pickle and the peppermint sucking lemon pepper blow pop lip.
That's it. Tyler, you're fired.
What my name is? The best barber in the ATL is back.
Cause he ain't fit for employment nowhere elsewhere, child.
Tyler, what you doing with a bozo suit on?
20 years Tyler.
Oh, you heard about my fresh cut, saying you wanted to get one?
We ain't here for no haircut. So don't be a wise guy. Don't be a wise guy. Don't be a wise guy. Don't be a wise guy.
Tyler!
So why don't you tell everybody the project Can't Get Right, what's about and your character?
But for me, and I think everybody involved, that was a passion project. We were determined to get that film done, hook or by crook, set changes, location variations, characters, whatever it took. So we of course, we started it out, and then we took a little break, but we all came back and we nailed it and knocked it out the park, man. So when I read the script, and the man's name was Dominic, and he was like a mob boss, and he was like, I read it like an old Italian guy. And I'm like, how am I gonna pull this off? But we adapted it to urban culture, still kept the name, and it was a departure from what people see me as. But what they don't know, which I just explained to you, that I have a past, that really I could tap into about being a boss, a street boss. So I kind of tapped into that character. But I'm a lighthearted dude in real life, you know what I mean? And now I've been so blessed to be away from the streets for so long that I kind of lost some of my edge. I'm sure a lot of people don't see me that way. In fact, there's a brother here named King V, and he does these hood flicks, right? And he never put me in the movie. I'm like, man, why you ain't never put me in the movie? See, I got you this time. So he put me in the movie, but he wanted me to be a lawyer. I'm like, dude, you do gangster movies. He's like, man, I used to wear suits all the time. He's like, your suit wearing ass ain't no damn gangster, blah, 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 blah. And I had to tell him, man, the suits was a facade. The whole time when I was, in Underworld, I wore a suit and tie because I worked at City Hall, and I had to keep my front up as a job, because I had, a foreign car, and I'm riding down, and I'm young, 20, 22, 23, 25 in a BMW or Porsche. So I wore suits because I realized that people look at people in suits different. Even at my job, my job didn't require suits, but the other higher ups all had on suits. So I'm like, well, maybe if I dress like them, like Bernie Mac said in one of these movies, which I used on Michael Shea show, you dress for the job you want. You know what I mean? So I always had the vision of being an entrepreneur and a CEO or a boss in a legitimate sense, so that's what drove that. So to get the departure and play, a street dude is less acting than it would have been for me to play a nerd lawyer. You know what I'm saying? I appreciated Dominic, man, and I took it to heart. Then I had my right hand ace, who was a woman, but she was an assassin, so, and I got a chance to stand on everybody's neck. I got a chance to blast somebody. I fell into it. Now, mind you, people, this is still a comedy.
Yeah, and basically the movie Can't Get Right is about a young man played by Shawty. Shout out to Shawty, who is like that guy that just can't keep a job, always getting fired, and he is a barber by trade, but he wants to do something different. And he finds a bag of money that belongs to the mob. But then when you find out it's him and you find out that he actually got some things going, you pretty much say, all right, I'm going to go ahead and take your barbershop. But, just imagine a dude that can't get right, always doing something wrong, not responsible, finds a bag of money, and it's going to take the whole community to help him get right. And I was looking for someone that can play that role, that can show some type of toughness, meanness, and believable, but also I want somebody to have a charismatic role and a humorous part to you, because we got some scenes with you and your son that's hilarious as well. And I have to give it to you, bro. You pulled it off. Man,
I appreciate it. One thing I try to be is teachable, especially when I'm not an expert. So I got a lot of good, your assistant director, she was giving me a lot of little pointers, because she like, you stand, you're supposed to stand on your square. You kind of wavering, it was a little stuff, and I could have been like, well, I'm playing. I was like, nope, you made a valid point. Let me just, do what needs to be done. But once we got rolling and we got some rest, it was easier to go ahead and fall into character, because we were shooting guerrilla style overnights. They tell you they're gonna pick you up at midnight. You end up getting picked up at 2. You work till 7 a.m. But like I said, it was a passion project, and I'm glad we were able to get it done. I'm looking forward to see the final cut and see it released to the people.
So do you see yourself more transition into not phasing out that comedy, but more into getting more into the acting, not just comedic, but doing other roles and challenging roles that are not from the comedy world?
Oh yeah, I get, man. I'm represented by Guild Talent. That's GIL Guild Talent, and they send me auditions all the time. Thanks to, and I hate to say thanks to, but the result of COVID, the auditioning and the casting industry is completely turned around to the point where everybody can self-tape. You don't have to come in and stand in front of people, and that's always been my biggest Achilles heel, is auditions. Like you saw, I didn't have to audition for you, but when you gave me directions and a script, I can nail it. But if I have to audition, I get flustered, I get nervous, and you only get 1 or 2 shots. You go in those rooms, and that's why I probably wasn't in movies like Barbershop and what else was shot here? Oh, Roll Bounce, my son was in. Even though the part I read for Roll Bounce was Mike Epps or Charlie Murphy, those 2 characters, and they were already cast before they came here, but they still let us read for it. But I've missed a lot of opportunities, commercials and other things, because going into that casting, I put too much pressure on myself. Now, you would think doing what I do, I have no problem talking in front of people. 100,000 people, no problem. 2 looking at me, telling me to say their words and not my own, flustered. So I've been auditioning. I'm never going to put comedy second, though. That'll never happen. A lot of cats do that. Some people get into stuff like stand-up and rap so that they can make it to movies and make it and be famous. I do stand-up because that's my passion. That's my gift. That's what God has given me, the opportunity and the ability to do, like, seamlessly without effort. It's effortless. Acting requires, preparation and study, and I need to actually take some more serious acting lessons and be around some trained actors to see the little nuances that I'm not picking up, because I haven't nailed as many auditions that I feel I should have, or I don't feel like I'm right for certain auditions and I don't put the right energy behind it. So I'm definitely going to do that, and if the more opportunities they give me, eventually I'm going to nail something that's going to be groundbreaking and it'll take me to that next level. The movie Heaven on 7, B. Cole gave me the opportunity to play a leading man throughout, and it's humorous, but it's mostly serious. So I know I have the ability. Now I have the confidence that I have the ability to do it. After working with you and working with B. Cole and working with my man Jay Davis and the other brother that's here, Mark Harris Films, man, I couldn't get that out on you, Matt.
So one thing I will say is I can see you doing a role, an uncomfortable role, nothing funny, a serious drama role. I can see you doing that, and that will like shock the system of a lot of people, as far as directors like myself, to see you in a different light, in a different role. And once you do that role, I think that's going to take you to another level. Before we get you out of here, I definitely want to talk about your comedy club that you have, Riddles, and also what you're doing every Tuesday with Sybil Wilkes.
Sybil, first of all, from the Time During the Morning Show, she's really kind of kept the band together. So she has George Wallace on, she has J. Anthony on from time to time. They were both doing it regularly, especially during the lockdown. We all had to pivot after, Papa's left us, after Tom, jumped ship and shut the show down. Well-deserved retirement on his part. I still talk to Tom a lot. We go to his house. We're going to go see him in Miami in December. So Sybil was always the voice of reason and the voice of knowledge on that show. She was the anchor in that way. So she kept her newsletter going and, her whole feature, which was part of the show, and she just, brought it to virtual. So every Tuesday, I'm on her show, 6 p.m. Central Time. It's me, her, and Cameron Riley, who is a political contributor, but he's also a brilliant young man who actually went to a high school with my son, or the same high school with my son. And so he's of that millennial age where they keep us in tune with all the movement and everything that's going on. But he's very bright, very brilliant. And so, but she does it 5 days a week. And the newsletter, It's Sybil, is available for free. You could just go online, go to SybilWilkes.com and subscribe. And she sends you, it's all about the Black community. Everything you do with voting and health and politics and community situations that we should be abreast of.
Be informed, be empowered. That's sticks in my brain when she's on Dear Hughley show segment with that. And about Riddles, tell us about Riddles, what you have going on there.
Well, Riddles, it's a traditional comedy club. It's where D-Ray made his name in Chicago. Like, I had TNT Comedy Hook, and that's where he cut his teeth there and all just aside. And then a suspicious fire took place, and TNT went out of business. So that Sunday night crowd we had, because TNT was...
They back open again, though.
Yeah, I saw all that. But anyway.
Yeah, they back open. Leon, yeah, I was there when I was in Chicago recently. Leon was got that spot now. Leon Rogers.
But anyway, TNT, when it went down, the crowd had no place to go on that Sunday, and D-Ray jumped right on it and went to Riddles. And that's when Riddles was in Tinley Park. And that lasted, he brought in, he took it to the next level, man. He was a promoter. He's a savant when it comes to promotions. That man know how to get in the streets and hustle and, promote himself and promote whatever he's doing. That's why he's doing well with New Year's Eve. Y'all can go support him at the Erie Crown. So he took over from there and blew it up. And then they expanded and opened 2 more locations. The Tinley Park location closed and the other one in Berwyn closed. but this one I have in Alsip remained. But it was becoming mundane. You know, it was falling off. And so I would go there once a year just to show some love and headline and do my birthday show or do an anniversary show. And he said, man, every time you come here, you sell it out. Why don't you just, you know, start booking the club? And matter of fact, if you just take it over, man, you know, just take it over and you can make some money every month, you know, and keep the club open. I'm like, all right, bet. Kenny, his name was. And now he's retired and moved to Florida. So his sister, Patty, and I are in partnership. I do the promotions and the booking and the performing, and they run the club, pay the bills, and sell the booze. So they get all the drinks proceeds, and we get the door. And that's why people have to know that it's very important that 2-drink minimum is enforced, because that's the only revenue they get is beverages. They get none of the ticket money, and we get none of the beverage money. So it's working so far. You know, we revitalized the club. Now she's put some investment into the actual interior of the club. Has been completely revamped and remodeled, and we bring the finest of those that you want to see. I mean, I do it as a traditional style. I'm not jumping on the wave of, you know, the first person with the most followers on social media or the newest, hottest cat. I'm giving all the traditional comedians who have, you know, earned the spot to come in and headline from around the country, and still grooming and bringing along the Chicago-based comedians. I don't like to call people local because local means you stay home. All the Chicago-based comedians also get a chance to work. And there's certain people that wouldn't get a weekend at a comedy club like this, and there's certain people that deserve it. And there's some that ain't even ready for it, but we give them the experience to prepare them for it, so when they go on the road, they know what it's like and what to do.
Yeah, shout out to Kenny, because I remember when I was first starting out, he used to always book me for his Friday and Saturday rooms. You know, I was that multi-versal, you know, I can do everything like you, just pretty much do, you know, any room and everything else. And it took me a while before I got on Sunday at Riddles, but, you know, I eventually got in there. But shout out to Kenny, because he really paved the way for me. Actually, that was my first hosting gig I ever had at Riddles out there in Tinley Park. So before we get you out of here, I'd like to play a game with all my called Get to Know the Guest. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions and you just give me one answer. You ready? Favorite cereal?
Cocoa Krispies.
Cocoa Crisp. Man, they still serving that? I didn't even know they still had that.
I don't know, they might not, because I don't eat cereal no more because I can't do the milk and I don't want to try the almond or the silk. But before I stopped eating cereal as an adult, I would eat Cocoa Krispies, man. I come home sometime from work and eat Cocoa Krispies on lunch. Cocoa Krispies was my favorite cereal.
Okay. All right. Michael Jackson or Prince?
Michael.
Michael. Why Michael?
Because of his impact on the industry, his impact on me personally. The first concert I ever saw in my life was the Jackson 5 at the amphitheater in the 70s. I saw the Bad tour, and I've never seen anything more impressive. And I saw the Purple Rain tour as well. But nothing had the energy and the dynamic presence that Michael had as far as what he did as a performer, as a vocalist, and his longevity in the business.
Okay. All right. Shout out to Michael Jackson. Janet Jackson was the first concert I ever went to. Her and Chucky Booger. I never forget that. All right. Give me a few names of up-and-coming comedians, male and females, that are like right now just you haven't really heard of them, but eventually you will, because they just killing the game underground.
And they're not up-and-coming, but I tell you two to watch right now. On the ladies' side, I go with Just Niche. And I know people have heard of her now, but still, she's still on the rise. And then on the guys, T. Murph is doing big things, man, from Chicago. But there's a numerous amount of comedians. And like I said, I'm going to represent for the home team first. T. Murph and Just Niche are doing things. T. Murph is making his splash out in Hollywood, and Just Niche should be on her way there if she's not already. I like Brandy Denise Boyd. Brandy is she played Epiphany on Power. I use her or I book her sometimes on the road with me. Matter of fact, she's going to Cayman Islands this week with us. Her and Leon Rogers and I will be in Cayman Island this Friday. But it's a lot. I'm
sorry, what was her name again?
Just Niche or Brandy Denise Boyd. Brandy. So she's on a couple of shows right now on Power. She played Epiphany the stripper who sold the cocaine. And she's also on another BET show. And then, of course, T. Murph. It's a young brother here, man, named O.J. Lamont. I just like him because he's energetic and he's doing his thing. He put me in a skit we did. It's about, he plays Rubber Man. It's all about STDs. and he has different segments where he battles different STDs. So I got to be gonorrhea, but I just like his spirit and his energy, man. So look up that skit. It's on my page on Instagram. It's Rubber Man versus Gano Man. But I like that young dude, man. Look out for him.
That's funny. All right. And the last question I have for you is, what would you tell your younger self when you first got into comedy, what you know now, for the up and coming people, just to kind of take something from getting in the game?
Be patient. The thing I tell young comedians now is enjoy the journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And it sounds cliche, but it's a fact. And if you don't do it and see it in that way, luckily I had this mentality, so I'm applying the experience I had to the advice I would give myself, is to be patient. Because whenever you do something like this, entertainment, whatever, you put out your first single, you want to be, platinum right away. You want to be touring the world right away. But it don't work like that for everybody. And for some, you have to have the fortitude and the patience and be patient and enjoy each level, each moment, each nuance. I wish we had more cell phones back in the day, like the Kings of Comedy Tour. If we had phones like we have now, I would have some of the most memorable footage of all time from just hanging out backstage with them cats. So I'd be patient and journal. I wish I had a journal more, because I want to write books now and my memories are fading. So, I didn't journal. So do that. But you got to have blinders on. You got to worry about you. You can't worry about who started with you, who you left behind, who shot in front of you. Be patient with your journey.
All right. Well, brother, I really appreciate the time. I appreciate you staying a little longer. But like I say, when you just in the moment and we talking, we reminiscing, time goes by. But I definitely appreciate you, brother. Much love. Like I said, you are one of the brothers that have always been even keel. And from the moment I met you 25 years ago to now, you've always been that brother. Take time out, talk to, and everything else. And look at me, I'm directing you in the film, and we're about to do other things together. So you never know what's gonna happen, man. So I really appreciate it.
Indeed, and that's why you got to be cool with people. First of all, it's not intentional. Like, it's not like, man, better be cool with people. You never know when they can help you, but you never know who can help you, or who somebody you help, or even were just cordial to, or even spoke to, that could eventually come back into your life, not only to help you, or be somebody that you snubbed that could be detrimental. You snub a dude when he's a new jack, and then he becomes not only just an entity, but possibly a behind-the-scenes mogul, and then they could be like, nah, and you wouldn't even know you did that. So just be cool with people, and do the right thing as much as possible. And when you can, get right, and when you can't, you just can't get right.
All right. Hey, and on that note, check out the movie Can't Get Right. Damon Williams is in the movie. Does a hilarious job, but also he has a different type of side of you that you're going to see and you guys going to enjoy. So, brother, I appreciate you. And like I said, much love and success. And, your second chapter is just beginning. And I can't wait to see what that journey is going to take you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your support and allowing me to do the film, your belief in that. And let's get to the second and the third and the fifth. Let's get this thing going, man. So,
all right, brother.
You Spike, I'll be Denzel, you be Spike. Let's make magic.
All right, brother. All right, guys. Damon Williams. Before we get out of here, tell everybody how they can follow you.
DamonWilliamsComedy.com has my link tree to most of my socials. I'm always on Instagram. If you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. And I'm on the road, about to get out of here tomorrow, early morning flight. And I see y'all when I look at you. Like my grandmother always used to say, Chicago be everywhere.
All right, brother. I appreciate you.